Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. It's so great to see you. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to be here and to be focused on professional development, learning, and bringing the best you got for the young people that you touch in your life, at your programs, through mentoring. So, again, thank you so much for being here. We are diving into chapter 6 of the Becoming a Better Mentor resource today. And chapter 6 is all about facilitating group interactions. If you need access to the Becoming a Better Mentor resource, I've just dropped the link into the chat. Hi, Minister Boardley. You can always access the resource there. There's video, the full text of the chapter is there, as well as audio as well. So you can listen to it like an audiobook, which is nice. But we're going to keep moving forward. A little bit about Mentor Marilyn DC, who is putting on the training for you today. We are a nonpartisan organization that aims to galvanize the mentoring movement, ensuring that there are enough quality mentors for the young people in Maryland. We are an affiliate of Mentor National, so there are many regional affiliates across the U.S. doing this work. And this here is the core of our work as far as building the movement, the mentoring movement, moving folks toward mentoring, toward valuing relationships and being in thoughtful and intentional relationships with young people and strengthening the field. So for those of you people on this call doing the work, how do we ensure that we're all doing our best work, that our programs are strong, and that we are ready to help young people through whatever they may be going through? So we do that in a lot of different ways. The core of our work, expanding the movement, scaling mentoring for more positive outcomes for young people, influencing systems, so the systems that interact with young people, schools, foster care, etc., doing advocacy to influence those systems to support young people, and then this prioritizing quality piece, which is where we are today, capacity building, disseminating information and research, and ensuring that everyone is engaged in best practices. When you get the slides, these will all be links that you can click on. I don't want to get too into it. A lot of them are self-explanatory, but if you are interested in any of these things, please feel free to email me and we can get engaged in that. A little about me. My style as a facilitator is to kind of put it all on the table as to who I am and what I bring to our sessions or any sessions I'm facilitating. So I don't believe that there is such a thing as totally neutral facilitation. We all bring our own lens to the work, shaped by our identities and experiences. So it may be helpful to you to know some of the lenses that I bring as you go through training today. So here it is, a little information about me. Oh, actually, I have a lot of information on a little slide that inform how I will be bringing you today's learning about the topic, which is group facilitation. Today's session is eligible for a Credly badge. The Mentor Maryland DC Credly program aims to verify your learnings that you may be able to share on your resume with your program, with funders, that you were actively engaged in learning and that you are informed on this topic as it relates to mentoring. So to earn a Credly badge for today's session, you need to be present for 95% of the training and to actively participate in all training activities and our chat. The best way for me to be able to track that you have done these things is to log in through the WebEx app and through a free account. If you have not done that, that is okay. I should be able to find you, but to make that easier will be for you to ensure that your name matches your email. If you can use your first and last name, that would be helpful. And to just be present. So to ensure that I may remember you when I'm looking through the data on the back end. Credly badges will typically be issued within a week. We're going into a holiday next week, so I will try to get this out to you before the 4th of July if you are a badge earner. So if it's after the 4th of July, you think you earned the badge and you did not get one, please follow up with me. But to tool around with WebEx a little bit, I know this is not a native platform for a lot of folks. It seems a lot of you have found the chat, so congrats, great job. But if you haven't yet, you should see at the bottom of your screen where you can mute yourself. You will have the opportunity to talk and share, so you will have access to that. To turn on your video, we'd love to see you. There will be opportunities for small groups as well. So especially in those small groups, it's helpful to have face-to-face. You won't be asked to share anything, but next to that is where you can raise your hand and where you can do an emoji reaction. So tool around with that emoji reaction and see what you can find there. You should also see at the bottom of your screen where you can see who else is here. If you have friends here, and you can click on them to send them a private message, or the chat, which again, it seems that you found. In the chat, you can send more emojis, send a gift, you can tag someone. So feel free to make the most that you can out of the chat. I see a fire emoji. Thank you, Kimberly. And then we are going to be using Slido today, which is an online polling feature. Again, this helps us facilitate discussion and our activities and to ensure that you are here and participating. So to get into Slido, you'll go to slido.com. You can open this on your phone or in a tab. And you should see when you get there something that says joining as participant. That is you. That's where you will enter the code, which you'll see on the next screen. So don't worry about that just yet. But once you do enter the code, then you will see something that looks like this. Welcome. Passcode is group, and that's where you'll write your name and you will join our polls. So I'm going to give you time to join the polls now. You will want to keep the Slido open in a tab on your phone throughout the session, just so you can quickly navigate to our polls when we use our polls. So go to slido.com now. Where you see the joining as participant hashtag, type in BBM, and then that next screen will open where you'll type in passcode group. So the code is BBM, and then that next thing, the passcode should be group. When you log in, you should see the Q&A being open. That will be open throughout our session. If you have questions that you feel we want to discuss at the end, please enter them into the Q&A, and we'll talk about them then. Otherwise, please raise your hand if you have a question. Please type your question into the chat, and I'll answer questions as appropriate throughout. If I think it's better for the end, I'll let you know that, and I'll ask you to put it into the Slido. So I know some folks just came in. We're getting logged into our Slido. So open a tab on your phone in your browser for slido.com, enter BBM into the hashtag area, and then on the next screen, you'll type in the passcode group, and you'll type in your name and join the Slido. You'll have another opportunity to join. I'm going to keep us moving forward so we can get into the content. Keep that open if you were able to log in. Let me just figure out where I'm going to put our videos. Okay. So getting right into our topic. The possibilities for mentoring in groups are almost endless, right? You told me a little bit about the kind of groups that you're in, groups for socializing, camp, after school, sports teams, clubs, project-based. And there's some common things for mentors or program leaders. I'm going to use the word mentor a lot, but this is for anybody who's interacting with young people in groups. But there are many things that we should keep in mind when facilitating group interactions. So this includes being aware of the predictable ways group develop and change over time, which we'll talk about, and the inevitable conflicts that are likely to arise, something that's totally normal. So today's session, we'll discuss potential advantages of mentoring in groups, the social processes that can make or break the ability of a group to promote healthy youth development, strategies that facilitate the development of a productive and positive group experience over time, and some common pitfalls and mistakes to avoid. So essentially, that is our agenda for today. And what is group facilitation? Simply put, group facilitation is the art of making it easy for a group of people to work together and achieve the goals. And good facilitators, to get grounded there, help us pay attention to the process of what is going on in the group and how group members are interacting. We'll get the code on the next screen that we need, guys. Don't worry about that just yet. So as a group facilitator, it's our job to make it easy and to pay attention to what's going on in the group and how groups are interacting, or our group members are interacting. So research shows that there are two main pathways for positive group development to happen. And that first pathway is the skills pathway. What do we know about the benefits of group mentoring? To put it simply, mentoring in groups can expand the opportunities for young people to learn important skills. Being part of a peer group gives young people a chance to learn valuable skills, right? Making new friends, resolving conflicts, standing up for oneself. And a supportive mentoring group can be a safe place for youth to try out a new skill or to learn by watching other young people do it. And mentors can also, you all, can also help by modeling ways to use those skills. Another important part of the skills pathway is that being part of a group gives youth a chance to be a helper and not just a person who receives help, right? So there is more of that opportunity. So when we think about a typical one-to-one relationship, it's bi-directional, but there's only two things moving, right? When we think about mentor, maybe two mentors and a lot of youth, there's all different kinds of opportunities for young people to interact, for skills to exchange and knowledge to exchange. And again, that's kind of the benefit, again, of group mentoring. Mentors can also encourage group members to share their thoughts and experiences in ways that can help the group develop a sense of mutual support. And of course, your role as mentors can help group interactions stay positive and keep problems from getting out of hand. And we'll talk a little bit more about how to do that soon. The second pathway is the mattering pathway. And can somebody come off mute and read the slide for us?
Groups can provide young people with a sense of belonging to something important, feeling engaged, emotionally safe, and having a place to contribute.
Yes, thank you so much. Right. Groups can help young people feel as though they matter, right? They are a part of something. In a group, you've become a part of a web of relationships and interactions, both those in the youth participating and those in which the youth is observing, right? All of these relationship layers can be going on at the same time, and youth can benefit not only from what their mentor says and does, but also from being embedded in a supportive peer context. Groups also take on a life of their own by building a cohesive group identity, which can be really meaningful for young people who are still in that stage of identity development, right? We talk about that a lot about in youth development is that young people are still developing who they are, and groups can help get young people there, can be a part of the young people's identity, which is really powerful. And research suggests that through the skills and mattering pathway, youth and group mentoring programs report a positive group climate, such as a sense of cohesion, engagement, mutual help, and that young people showed increases in self-efficacy, self-awareness, support from adults at school, and improvement in grades. So I know those are all things that we want for young people. So by being intentional with our group facilitation, we know that we're working towards possible positive outcomes for young people. So one of the first things that comes to mind, I'm sure, when we think about groups of young people is peer influence and peer pressure, right? Peers are powerful influences. We typically only think of the negative ways that peer pressure operates, but research shows that it works both ways. Young people can be influenced by their peers to engage in positive behaviors. Effective group facilitation can limit the possibility of negative peer pressure taking hold and increasing the likelihood that peer groups will influence each other in more positive ways. If we have a deficit kind of mindset about peer influence and thinking only that you or only adults can get or keep young people in line, you'll miss the opportunity for your group to leverage the positive peer influence. I would hope that we're coming into looking at young people with a strengths-based mindset, that we value them and what they have to contribute. And when we see that for our young people, we're able to leverage that in that facilitation piece so that they can positively influence each other. Okay. We are moving now into a Slido poll. So we want to get logged in. I'm dropping everything in the chat again, the link. You'll join, you'll type in BBM into the hashtag, all caps, and then the passcode is group. But what we're going to do is build a word cloud of how we feel when we are responsible for a group of young people. So you can enter more than one word, but enter one at a time. How do you feel when you are responsible for a group of young people? Let's build our word cloud. But the more folks participate, or the more folks submit a single word or the same word, so excited got big because more than one of us is feeling excited. So the bigger the word, the more of us are having that same feeling. So I'll give you some time to enter your words. High stakes, empowered, pressure, for sure, maybe intimidating, maybe feel a little anxious, empowered. Yeah, so we're feeling positive and like we have a lot of positive stakes, right? To assist our young people. Anxious, overwhelmed, nervous. I'm seeing a theme. Right, there's a accountability piece when we're facilitating groups of young people. And while some of us are feeling nervous and anxious, some of us are feeling confident too. So I'm hoping today that you all, right, will be able to influence each other. Some of that confidence may rub off, and then we may be able to support some of us on the call who feel more nervous and anxious. Some folks feel ready, hopeful, fun. Yeah, some fun's about to happen when young people get together. Right? Useful. That's a good one, right? You have an important role when groups of young people come together. That's great. Important, like a leader, right? This is a leadership role. Trusted, right? Trust in a group is really important, and we will talk more about that. Get your final words in. Love, if we're feeling the love when we're in the group. Yes, and that's definitely a goal, right? That we have that positive feelings when we're in the group. And not just you, right? We're going to talk about how we can ensure that young people are having those positive feelings. Awesome. All right, thank you. When I send out the slides, I'll capture the word cloud as well, so you'll be able to see what we came up with. So thank you so much for participating. Again, keep that up. We'll be doing another slide or Slido in a little bit, and it should stay open that you can continue to answer when we move forward. Okay. So what does good group facilitation look like? Let's get into that. So what are the conditions we need to get these groups started or groups working, right? So we have 4 conditions that we're going to go through. To start, group agreements, create ground rules and agreements. And these agreements should be youth owned, right? So we want to help group members decide how they want to interact and develop agreements that everyone can live with is a critical early step that can ease the concerns of group members and help them build a sense of trust. So right when we come into a group of young people, they're also feeling nervous, not sure what to expect, not sure if there's trust there yet, right? So this helps them all kind of get on the same page about what expectations are and how they can trust each other. And remember that group agreements only work if they are in practice, right? Once we've set them together, we have to actually apply them. So it's your job as a facilitator to help the group hold to their agreements and possibly edit their agreements over time as the group develops. So being mindful that this might not be an activity that we only do once. We do it at the beginning, but we might need to revisit as the group changes over time. And that doesn't mean that it's failed, right? It's that maybe the group has changed, dynamics have changed, for the better or in a different way, or there's more trust. So now we need deeper group agreements. So keeping in mind that this might be something that we continue to develop over time. Or if this is a group that's going to be in contact for a long time, it would make sense to revisit the group agreements. Establish group rituals and routines. So developing a regular sequence of activities can help structure the time the group spends together and create a sense of ownership and belonging. So some of that may be determined by the nature of the group that you are in, sports, practice, project-based, etc. So if so, make it clear to the members of the group what that may look like, that kind of structure of time. But maybe there's something that we can leave space for the group to build in a ritual, a transition owned by them. So a fun warm-up, a closing ritual, etc. Still make some time where you have some ownership over their time and a shared understanding of what they're going to do with that time. And thinking back to the mattering pathway and group identity, rituals and routines can be helpful in development of a group identity. And then participation. So a good facilitator makes sure that everyone gets what they need and contributes in ways that are meaningful to them and to the group. And I say meaningful to them because that will look different potentially for each individual in the group based on who they are, their personality type, their communication type. So ensuring that there's all kinds of different ways for young people to interact and participate. We also want to make space for youth to pass if they want to not participate. in something or to answer a question. We want to meet them where they are at, and that is on to us as the group leader or facilitator or mentor to get to know our young people and see what is appropriate. I would encourage you to set up expectations for participation in that group agreement. So this helps give you and the young people an accountability framework to hold them to regarding their participation. So if we're getting through the group agreements and that's missing, I would say as the facilitator to bring them back, be like, guys, how are we going to participate? If we're asking a discussion question, how many folks are going to answer, or how many times does an individual in the group need to participate? Or if we're doing a group sports activity, it's going to be expected that everyone participates unless they don't feel well, they forgot their water or something like that. And you can establish that then expectations for participation. And then coming back to group identity, build a sense of we, not just a meeting, right? So it's not just that this is the hour they spend with you during camp, that this is time for me and my group, right? Me and my friends, or whoever we might develop our group. Maybe we're going to name our group, right? We're going to create a name. We're going to have a logo. We're going to make t-shirts. We want them to feel proud for being part of the group. And then how do we get into that sweet spot, or what does that sweet spot look like? So that sweet spot is right in between having too much control. So you're making every decision for the group, you're moving forward on a schedule that you have determined. Young people don't have a lot of opportunities for participation. And if we are being too controlling, we might notice lower engagement. On the other end of that spectrum is too little structure. We're not doing enough. We're not doing that facilitating and guidance that our group may need. So our group time may be unfocused, our discussions may be unfocused, and young people, and maybe you, are not clear of the outcomes. And that sweet spot right in the middle balances and enables clarity. Why this group is together, what are our expectations of what we're going to accomplishment. Engagement is better, and we have better outcomes. I want to ask you all, feel free to raise your hand, come off mute, or write in the chat. But do you have a memory of a facilitator who hit that sweet spot? Maybe from when you were a kid, or maybe a facilitator you experienced as an adult, at a conference, at training. How did they hit that sweet spot, and how did it make you feel? So think about a facilitator who hit that sweet spot. Can you tell us a little bit about it? Feel free to write in the chat or raise your hand and come off mute. Jocelyn, I see your hand raised. Jocelyn?
Mute, she's muted.
Two hands up. I just saw two hands up and they disappeared. If you raise your hand, feel free to come off mute.
One.
Good morning. Oh,
That's the problem. I didn't unmute. I'm sorry. I've been we've been doing group sessions of group facilitation for the last 11 years. In fact, that is really our primary with our girls and boys. We have about 50 students that participate in that type of group meeting. But what we found is that after we tell them about exactly what the program is about, and we get them to partner with us in agreement, what we do is we give them a list of topics that they might want to discuss. And we found that to be more beneficial than anything else because we get their buy-in from the beginning.
Yeah, so good, right? The choice is piece, and that's right in between too much just telling them what we're going to talk about, or just being like, hey guys, what do you want to talk about? Giving options can be really good as well. And also developmentally, that can be easier, especially for younger kids. That might be easier for them to be able to choose from a list, or with older kids, maybe they have the list and they can also contribute their own ideas. I want to check here in the chat, but if anybody else wants to share, feel free to come off mute. Vanessa says that Tanya was instrumental and she provided the insight needed to be confident. So she was a knowledge expert. Facilitators asking what they're looking for in the program. Yeah, any other memories of a facilitator who was right in that sweet spot?
Yeah, for me, similar to Jocelyn, and it's one of the things that I do in my sessions is I know I have topics that I want to cover, but I do bake in the time to have the students tell me like what is currently pressuring you today? Do any of these topics, does this resonate with you? What can we add? And then have them lead and helping even develop a session themselves. Like, how would you deliver this? What would you want to talk about? And then I use that as a guide and incorporate it into my sessions. And I learned that from like a volunteer program that I was in middle school and high school in West Philly, which was like really pivotal for me. And it's also one of the programs where I learned the right to pass, which I always, I'm like, there's no pressure to participate, which we always bake into our community agreements as
Yeah,
well. And it's generally very well received with the students that I work with.
yeah, yeah. Thank you so much. And you bring up an important thing, right? Especially when we talk about sharing power and getting input from young people. Likely, our groups have been set up because we're a part of a program that has larger goals, right? The goal of the sports team is to win the game. The goal of this project is to finish the project. The goal of this tutoring group is to improve grades and things like that. So we're always keeping those things in mind while we're also giving young people the opportunity to share live feedback and be like, we're not feeling this for today. Maybe you've got plans for the day and they've got something else on their minds. It might be time to drop the plans and go with the group needs, and you can always come back maybe to your larger goal. Yeah, really, really good. I know Brady Wheeler, seeing him getting shouted out in the chat, and I would agree. He's really good at that. Some other things we want to think about to get to that sweet spot, some kind of quick tips. Getting comfortable with silence, right? I think this is always a pro tip when it comes to all kinds of facilitating, teaching, coaching, etc. Making space for young people to fill and being okay with that. And they are likely to fill it if you give them that space. And you see me do the same thing as well as I'm facilitating you all. If they're talking more than you are, that may be a good thing. Maybe if you aren't feeling the weight of keeping the conversation going, it means the youth are engaged in the topic, right? We want to hear them talking more than we hear ourselves talking. Sometimes we get caught up in moving on to the next thing or keeping time that we're missing when the group is really engaged, and we miss the opportunity to let them make the most of that time. If they are bringing difficult topics, which might make you feel nervous and anxious, some of those feelings we saw on the previous slide, it probably means that they trust you and they trust each other to share the important things that are going on in their lives. Your sweet spot may be when does it work to talk through these things as the group, and when might we need to seek additional resources for the young people who may be going through it. Yeah, great. Thank you guys so much for sharing. Okay. Over time, groups go through a predictable series of stages. We're about to talk through them here on the screen, but understanding that process is key so you can determine how you can offer your guidance accordingly. And these are not a mystery. You likely know at least some of these stages. If you can guess what the first stage is, type it in the chat. What is the first stage of group development? May no penalty if you don't know. We're here to talk about it and talk through it. What do you think the first stage of group development is? Planning? Get a few more guesses. Four? Forming. Yes. Coming together. This is just when our group is getting together. Nobody knows quite yet what we're expecting or doing. And this is the time that we get to figure that out, where the group gets to ask themselves, who are we? What are we doing here? Right? What is the next one? I know you guys know. What comes after forming? Feel free to type in the chat. Storming, as you can see from my little cloud here, right? So storming, young people are members of our group are starting to define their position in the group. Their personalities are showing, and this is where there is a possibility for conflict as we are still just kind of figuring it out. All these kind of stages tend to blend into each other, right? There's still some forming going on, where there might be some storming, and there might be some storming going on as we transition into what's the next stage, y'all? What comes after storming? Forming, storming, and storming. Right. So our group is starting to work together as a unit. They're learning to trust each other, to be effective and rely on each other. They're seeing and asking, right, how do we work together? And members are taking ownership of their responsibilities in the group. This next step is often not discussed as much. Often we hear forming, storming, and norming, but we actually have two more stages we want to be mindful of as good group facilitators. So our next one is performing. This is our most productive stage. Everyone's working well together. The possibilities feel endless. They're truly depending on each other. They're learning to be flexible. And what I also want to note here is that not every group may reach this top gold star stage, and that is okay, right? And that a lot of this depends on time and the nature of the group and the stability of the group. Is it a transitory group where folks are coming and leaving? And that actually takes us into our next one, which is adjourning. So these are the transitions of the group or the closure of the group. So members and you are acknowledging that the group will come to a close. If some members are anticipated to leave early, that there's a transition, it may change group structure. So there may be the adjournment of just a few members of the group. And how do we add some structure there to manage their feelings about the transition so they can hopefully continue to perform? Do you have any memorable experiences of being in a group at one of these stages? So a memorable forming stage, a stormy time, an exciting norming process, the feeling of being in a group and performing, or a heartfelt adjourning. Do you have a memory of being in a group in one of these stages where something really sticks out to you? Feel free to come off mute or write in the chat. Time that you were in a group and there's a memorable time in one of these stages.
I have one, Renee.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so our group, every December, we ask for a year commitment. Every December, we come together for a Christmas celebration. And last year, the girls received certificates of completion. So that was a good practice of adjourning, understanding that
Yeah.
we completed the course, we completed our cohorts. So I believe they enjoy being celebrated and giving each other
Yeah.
a round of applause for completion. So we'll definitely continue that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's wonderful. Right. This journey is often right the closure of our programs, which for those of you who run programs, that's one of the elements of effective practice that we talked about, transition and closure, and that is really meaningful. So that's in the practice of the whole of the larger program, of the larger group, and even on those smaller groups. Because remember, our groups have their own identity and their own uniqueness. So where is that opportunity in the groups, maybe within a larger group, the team within the camp with a bunch of teams, that we can do a little acknowledgement so we can end well?
Hi,
Amanda
Renee. I
says,
have
oh yeah,
some
please.
input. Sorry. I run a workshop group with it's the same mentees every month, and one of the things that I love is our closing is always, I feel like it's really good. I like the closing, and also we created a chat, like a WhatsApp chat, to continue conversations as a group before our next workshop. So it kind of like keeps us engaged until we meet again. And I do find that, and I've gotten feedback that that's been helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much, Christina. Right. The time within the group, between the group meetings and when the group is together. And this is good to go all the way back to forming, setting expectations for what is those times, right? We're going to meet once a week, twice a week, and this is what we're going to do when we're all together. And then when we're not together, these are our opportunities to still connect, or we're going to give each other space until we see each other again. And that is okay too. So again, getting that clarity is a really important piece. But yeah, again, the smaller adjournings in between meetings and things like that is like another opportunity to be intentional. Yeah, thank you so much. So as the group develops, your role shifts. So let's talk through what they may need from you at each stage. So in that forming stage, this is where we want to be clear, where we want to be warm. We're just kind of building that rapport, which some of you guessed was kind of the first stage, right? The building rapport and building support. In this stage, group members may rely on you to help explain the group's purpose, help set ground rules, and delegate responsibilities. And I would say rules and group agreements might be different, right? You may be the enforcer of program rules, but if the young people don't know what those program rules are, then they're not likely to necessarily uphold them, right? And that can be your opportunity to do some of that in that forming, and to do it in a very clear way is important. If and when we get to that storming piece, this is where we want to calm those boundaries, identify those boundaries, and potentially repair harm if harm is there. This is an opportunity for you to help the group members focus, right? Again, of the why we are here, which we kind of established in the forming stage, and to encourage them to start taking responsibility for getting along and supporting each other, right? We don't want the group to get to the place where they're only coming to you to solve problems, to talk through things, to tattle and things like that. Reminding the group that we have agreements on how we're going to work through things, and your role to support them through that.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Hello, everybody. This is Kofi Kwa, Mentor Male Teens in the Hood, Director Cameron Miles. So I sort of kind of co-lead Summer STEM Camp. I've been doing it for about 4 years now. It's all African American males. It's on Monroe and North Avenue. Very tough area, but we get it done every summer. It's a 5-week program, and each week we have a theme as it relates to STEM. It could range from electronics to AI, etc. But every morning we have a camp code that was developed for the all year round Mentor Male program for the entire year. But we have a separate summer STEM camp, but it's the same codes.
Yeah.
It's about 15 rules. You sit down, beginning the camp, or really each day, kind of go over the rules and structure. At the end of the camp, things that they've built, whether it be bridges, electronic sets, or robots that they build, sometimes they take them home with them. So we close out at the end of the 5-week program with like a huge party where we invite parents or whoever is their caretaker, and we just celebrate with food and a whole bunch of stuff. So that's what we do at our camp.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And I think something interesting that you talked about, right? Some of us, right, we have programs that run through the school year, and then we have in the summer continued programming, but that maybe some of the kids from the school year will be there, or maybe some newer kids will be joining as well. We want to uphold maybe what our group agreements are from the school year to the summer. So if we are kind of having a mixed group with some young people who are established in the program, or newer young people to the program, that we get to reestablish those norms, and the kind of repeating of it can be helpful for the young people, so they're always on the same page. And for the young people who are more experienced, they have the experience to hold the fellow members accountable and things like that. Which actually, to get to that kind of norming piece, is that young people are working together. You still have a leadership role. So being mindful of what is your responsibility, what is the young people's responsibility, and again, finding that balance of sharing power, because the sharing power in the youth voice and participation piece is important, but we want to have balance there. So it's not on the group to figure out necessarily what they're going to do for the day. Maybe that is the responsibility, but finding balance there so you are still doing your part. When it comes to performing, this is your opportunity to step back, to be supportive, to acknowledge the wonderful things that are happening, and to encourage effort. So one thing I want to delineate here when it comes to being supportive of performing when things are going well is the difference between praise and encouragement, right? So praise is non-specific, something like, great job, that was awesome. Rather, encouragement acknowledges the effort to complete the thing, whether the thing is even maybe a success or a failure, right? So if we are working on, or again, to go back to a sports team, you put in a lot of effort today. You were running really fast. You played well with your teammates. That encouragement piece and acknowledging the effort is really important. And what we know, again, from research is that it keeps young people engaged and motivated. Whereas praise, we have kind of the risk of creating praise junkies who just want a gold star, who just want to hear a great job and aren't attaching success to the effort piece. And we want young people to see the value in effort and engagement. Ooh, Spider-Man. Okay. And then lastly, what a group mate need for you at this adjourning piece, which a lot of you had great example of. So you as the leader are likely the most aware of when, what, and how the group will be coming to a close. So being mindful that if you have memory of being a young person and then suddenly it's over, right? It's the end of camp, it's the end of school. It can be really hard on young people. And for some young people, those kind of transitions can be like really, really hard. So we want to, if there is a set ending and the ending process we want to make sure that there's a process by the program or the group that we are communicating that in good time with the young folks so they know when things are coming to an end and can anticipate and kind of manage their feelings accordingly. And if there is, if it is a structure to end through the program, is there an opportunity for your unique subgroup to have their own closing ritual or activity to close from what they've created within their group identity? Cool. We're going to now get into talking a little bit about pitfalls or things that happen in groups that are not so pleasant, that maybe gave us some of those nervous and anxious feelings. So I want you to answer this question. When you go back to your Slido, you'll see a list of experiences that happen a lot in groups. So you should be able to choose more than one, but which of these experiences drive you the most crazy when you are facilitating a group? So get back to your Slido and I'll drop the link in the chat. And the join information is here on the left side of the screen. But let's see what is the most common theme as it relates to being driven crazy by these young people, which I think is fair to acknowledge that. Maybe not, we're not saying that to their face, but in community with each other now, we can kind of talk through some of these things. So nobody talking, the activity ended too early, kids won't stop saying 6, 7, but I did put in kind of a joke, but I know it's real. Young people were bickering. Someone asked a question you couldn't answer. One young person wouldn't stop talking. And activity took too long. Yeah, it gives you guys some more. Looks like you have about 25 folks and now it gives some more folks to join and put in their answers. But right, what is the most difficult for you all when facilitating groups? And we're going to go through some challenges and tools on the next slide, but I want to see what kind of the experiences are currently. And if it matches what I thought as well, because I had some ideas when I put this together, but I'm curious about what you guys all think. So it's looking like, right, it is difficult when the group has gone quiet, and we'll talk through that on the next slide. And then this kind of bickering piece. And I think it's important to notice the difference between storming and bickering. Okay. When I think of bickering, and you can let me know if you agree, but right, it's kind of like that meaningless poking and prodding at each other that can also happen between people who get along and love each other as well, right? But just for the sake of the poke, rather than a storming, is the group is still coming together, and that there's opportunity to learn and to reset those boundaries. And even when bickering is happening, which we'll talk about, right, there's the opportunity to go back to the agreements and being like, is this how we want to spend our time together? Bickering and driving each other crazy, saying 6, 7 nonstop, right? Going back to that forming piece and agreements and reminding them people of what those are. And again, to get into this nobody would talk piece, which we'll talk more on the next slide, this is why it's important in that forming stage to set expectations of what participation looks like, right? It is expected that you will participate in the discussion. And what happens when you don't? If no one is participating, what is the fallout from that? That you and the group can agree on that and that it's appropriate. considering the context in the program. But yeah, 6, 7, still pretty high though. Awesome. Okay, thank you so much for your feedback. On this next slide, you'll see some of those challenges that we identified in the previous slide and a little bit and some other ones as well, but I have kind of a tool and a tip for each one. So we'll go through, I'll read one off the slide and I'll ask folks to either to type in the chat a tool that you may use that comes to mind about what you like to do when these things happen, and then we'll go over the tool together on the screen. So the challenge, the group is too large for everyone to speak. What comes to mind as to what you would do? Type it there in the chat. When the group is too large to speak, what's your instinct on what to do? Yeah, great. Right. Create smaller groups. Using smaller groups or triads, and then invite some of those smaller groups to share out so you can still hear everyone's voice. If you read the chapter, it talks a little bit about there's no like, this is the one evidence-based size of groups, particularly if there's more than one adult. And often, sometimes in larger groups, it makes sense there's a larger group, right? There's, I don't know how many people are on a soccer team, but a lot. So what are the opportunities for the smaller groups within the groups? Well, a talking stick, another thing too. That's a good idea as well. Is that something that you set up in your forming? Something like a talking stick or agreements. Ooh, Charlene, also ask them to write it down, pick someone to answer. That is a good one. And actually, that's going to be a suggestion in this next one. So only a few people are talking. We already kind of got to the answer. The opportunity for folks to write it down first, so everyone is still participating, and then to talk second. So a think, pair, share, where they talk to their neighbor and then they share out to the larger group. Or again, that kind of smaller groups or pairs if the group isn't that big. So yeah, only a few folks are talking, making space for everyone to still participate. Doing that solo might be the first way to do that. So then this next one, which again seems like this was most of our discomfort with groups. The room goes quiet. What do you tend to do? And maybe we don't know. Right. That waiting piece, we talked about that earlier. That is important. And your comfort there. Ooh, Andre, I saw you raising your hand. If you'd like to come off mute, but lots of good ideas in the chat.
Yes, it might be unconventional, but I was a very silent person growing up, and I got into a mentor program at MC, which I actually was student aid for, and I had to do presentations, and I found it at times very useful to say, and obviously in according to the situation and the that we were in, and what the presentation was off the wall
Yeah.
to make people laugh.
Yeah.
Something embarrassing. People laughed at it. Just broke the
Yeah.
ice. Got people to talk.
Yeah. 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 That's really good. Right. Something disarming if they're not expecting you to say. Of course, appropriate to the context and to the age of the young people. But if you mix it up, get a little unconventional or what they're, again, break their expectations. I saw some of those kind of suggestions in the chat. It might be an opportunity to do an icebreaker or community builder, which a lot of you guys suggested, which I think is a good one. What is it telling you as to why folks are not talking? I think we had a lot of good ideas. And the suggestion here, right? Offer a wait time, right? I'm going to give you guys a minute to answer this question or to get ready for this discussion. Giving a one-word check-in instead of expecting a lot more, and again, making it more of a lower pressure response option. Or right, giving options when we talk about that options piece. Maybe there's a list of things, of answers that they can choose from or things like that. All right, our next one, when there is tension or conflict showing up in your group, what are you likely to do? If there's tension or conflict. Redirect. I saw two folks raise your hand, and when I say view, it won't let me. If somebody wants to come off mute, feel free.
Good morning. This is April Harris. I just want to say also about the silence that sometimes it may be more of an issue for the facilitator. Silence is okay.
Yeah.
Allowing us, we just said about the 6-7 and the bickering. So if we get some silence, it may not be a negative thing. Maybe what we're
Yeah.
saying is really resonating with them. So just sit, and I start off early saying that silence is okay.
Yeah.
So I don't want to try to fill it. But the
Yeah.
bickering, I usually leave that to the facilitator, especially if the whoever's in the room with me, especially if I'm in the school, because they have rules, and really try to resolve that before it starts. More preventative.
Yeah.
If we have disagreements, that's okay. Everybody has their own opinion, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. You bring up a good point, right? Is that we've hopefully planned for conflict in that forming stage, right? What are we going to do should we disagree? If we don't agree with someone's idea, if there's, we're going to, I won't say fight as in like fight, but get into an argument. What is the group going to do? Hopefully, we've talked a little bit about that in the forming. But I think as those things happen, there's a lot of different things, and I think you guys had some good ideas as well. But let's pause. Say what you noticed. What be thoughtful about what you're noticing about the group and communicate that to the group. And then again, of course, returning to the group agreements. There might be situations if a conflict is really pressing or things are heated where removing MP before a group and doing that privately may be more appropriate. Or it's very low stakes, and then a simple redirection is enough, and maybe checking in with the young people later. So again, kind of reading the room is of course a really important part of group facilitation. Okay, one person is dominating. So you're only hearing from one voice, or one voice is always pushing through in your group and group activities. Okay, Mr. Gordon.
Normally, we recognize that one voice and we are thankful for their input, but we also ask others to share their insight. And if they're not comfortable, then we try to stop and pause and figure out what's the uncomfortability.
Yeah. Yeah. So important, right? So figuring that out, is this that we can shift what we're doing and how we're responding? Of course, we don't want to discourage participation from this youth who's very enthusiastic. So naming that, and also potentially leveraging this youth to positively influence his peers or their peers into participation. I think another thing that some of us are getting to in the chat is, right, is this an opportunity for us to shift the structure of participation or discussion? Where we're going to move it in the round, we're going to set timers for different folks to respond. This idea of letting young people of this idea of take space and make space, right? We can take up some space. We also have to make space for others to participate as well. These last few, I'm going to go through a little faster so we can transition into our activity. But the group feels unfocused. I think simply, and we've addressed this in some of our other slides, being grounded in our purpose, reminding the group why are we meeting? Why are we together? Ask the group what the group needs and taking time to do that and give them their feedback and identify what the next clear step is. So if the group is unfocused, this isn't time for us to also be reflective of, am I providing enough structure to the group? Is the group clear on why we're together? And do some of that. And we'll talk about reflection towards the end of today's session. The energy drops. And I know you all have lots of ideas for this that fall under this suggestion. A quick movement break, a temperature check, changing the format, right? A redirection of what you may be doing. And another part of being an effective facilitator is comfort in doing that. Comfort in breaking away from the schedule and being flexible is important. So when the energy drops, you notice it, and you're ready to shift. You have something in your back pocket for those kind of situations. And then if the conversation ends abruptly, then maybe the conversation, right, is over, and that's okay. So closing with the takeaway, summarizing what the group has shared, sharing appreciation, and then moving on to what the next step is. we're going to be moving on into our application activities for the rest of, or for most of the rest of today's session. And that is going to start with a solo activity. So the directions are here on the screen. But what I want you to do is to think about being in that forming stage and how you would facilitate, thinking about the next group of youth you're going to work with, whether that literally is about to happen and you can think specifically, or imagine the next group of youth you're going to work with, how would you approach it facilitating creating group agreements with that youth? So either get a pen and paper, open your favorite digital tool, but take the time. We're going to do at least 5 minutes to write out how you approach facilitating group agreements. So remember, when we are facilitating group agreements, the youth should feel ownership over the agreements so they actually practice them moving forward. And as you write them out, I want you to think about what are the steps for this to get done, what tools you may need, or how you may need to prepare to facilitate. So before I turn on some music, are those directions clear? And there is an accountability piece to doing this. So this is not an invitation for you to step away. This leads into another activity where you will need what you wrote. So give me a 1 in the chat if the directions are clear. Okay, cool. I'm going to turn on some music and set a timer and pause the recording and give you some time. I'll check in at 5 minutes, and if you need more time, you can let me know. But I'm going to turn on some music now. Okay. So finish up your notes, your little how-to of how you would facilitate group agreements. And then we're going to move into immediate application of what we have written out. So we are going to break out into rooms, and one person in your breakout room will facilitate the group agreement activity that they wrote out. The rest of you will follow the directions, role play a little bit as the young people and participate in their activity and establish those group norms. So there's going to be about 5 or 6 of us in each room, which I feel is a typical good reflection of, pardon me, of what a group size may look like. So one person is going to facilitate their group agreement activity. The rest of you will participate accordingly. But how will you decide who's going to facilitate? Well, if one person doesn't immediately raise their hand or sign up to do so, which you are welcome to do if you're motivated to get your practice in, if that doesn't immediately happen, I don't want you to take too much time deciding who. So instead, if someone doesn't immediately raise their hand, you'll ask yourselves, who most recently did their laundry? And whoever did will be the facilitator. So I'm really asking you to get into that practice of facilitating, to see what it feels like to be on the other end, to be a young person experiencing an adult working them through the group agreement experiences. Don't make me come in there. We're going to debrief the experience. I want to hear about how it went, and we will debrief that as a large group. If you understand and agree to this activity, to do that in your breakout rooms, please drop a 1 in the chat, and then I will open those rooms. I'm going to give you guys 10 minutes at least, so you have time to get that done. And we're going to break out now. Welcome back, everybody. I hope you made the most of your time. We have just a few minutes to report out, but I want to hear. Please feel free to write in the chat as well. We won't have much time for everyone to speak, so please write in the chat so we can hear from you. But how did it go? Who was the facilitator? How'd it go? If you experienced it, how'd it go? How did it feel to facilitate it, to be on the other end? And what might you change the next time you did it? So yeah, how did it go with your group? I want to hear from facilitators. I want to hear from those who experienced it. Tell us in the chat, or feel free to raise your hand and come off mute.
Hello, yes, this is Charlene. I was in
Hi.
a group with Andre, Nola, and Emily. it was very interesting with the task that Andre gave us. So he stated that in the group, they started off with an icebreaker.
Mhm.
And in the icebreaker, they, instead of having the students answer the questions, they had the students to go towards a certain area in that space. When they went towards that
Mm.
area, then that gave them the group that would be placed together in a group so that they can define a little bit more about what role and rules that they wanted to initiate for the program. So once they got
Oh.
into their groups, they came up with some ideas and they all voted. And then one person in the group came up and stated the different ideas. Then they came back to the larger group so that they can redefine it even more to see if they had any comparisons. Once they
Mm.
found out the comparisons, then they broke into a different icebreaker so that they could figure out how to initiate these. And except for in this group, they had to tell the reason why they suggested
Mm.
those
Yeah.
types of rules. And then they came into how they were going to complete their program and what it entailed at the end, that they were going to go back and review to see if it really worked. So that was
Yeah.
our group, and that was Mr. Andre who came up with his idea that we all practice. And it, to
Yeah.
me, just my opinion, I think that was a wonderful way to separate people. One, you didn't have to worry about friends going to the same group. They went to what resonated with them, which Andre
Right.
said that he learned from, I believe, Andre, you said your college professor.
Mhm.
That's where they did it so that it wouldn't be like you putting a student in a group that they couldn't resonate with those people. So for me,
Right.
I just give Andre his kudos because it really
Yeah.
worked out for me.
Yeah. Thank you for facilitating, Andre. And I think something important that you hit, right, is the why, right? When we're setting young people up to contribute and to share, but getting to that why piece helps you as a facilitator learn what are the values of the individuals in this group, and how can we ensure that our agreements are holding up at least some of each individual's values so folks are on the same page. Angelica said, we discussed making sure the input was valued and shared consensus on what the agreement stood for, gave opportunity for reflection and feedback, and leave space for change and adjustment over time. Right. Yeah. So is there a structure that you can build to do that revisiting? Right? What if we want to change one of the agreements over time? How do we initiate that change and go through that? But I have some more folks share in the chat. I'd love to hear more. Awesome. Thanks, Kayla.
And
And
can I
I'd love to
share
hear
real
some
quick?
more. Yeah.
Hey, good afternoon, guys. This is April. And so I was in the room with Minister Jeffrey was our facilitator, Janelle, and then there was two other amazing people in the group. But what I want to stress is that we can always, and I love AI, so we can always come up with a way to do it. But the authenticity in which Jeffrey presented was the magic. He made me feel safe in the group,
Yeah.
allowed me to share. There was no right or wrong. And he placed ownership of the rules of engagement on the participants. So
Yeah.
we had some kind of accountability because we came up with it. So I
Right.
just really appreciate it. But the way he conducted it, he left it open to us. We were able to engage. There was no right or wrong. And the way he delivered was special. So
Yeah.
having safety in a group is
Yeah.
primary for me.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that forming stage is the time to do that and build that. And I think there's another thing to consider as well. Each time we facilitate or run a group, we're getting better. Right? With more experience, we will get better and better at it. And as we get to know our young people better, the work will become a bit easier to do. And then there's this other piece, the kind of je ne sais quoi, the unspoken of what facilitators bring to the table. But this empathy piece, that it's not that anybody's wrong, that everybody has the opportunity to share, that we value it. So great. Thank you guys so much for sharing. I'm glad you had positive experiences. We are right up at the end of time, so just want to share what I have left on the slides for you to take with you. I have a slide here with kind of just final reminders that I will leave for you to review on your own. But I just want everyone to remember, keep our eyes on the prize. What is the goal of our group? A sports team needs to get practice for the next game. A group with a curriculum, we need to learn a new skill. If it's peer group mentoring, the goal is to have fun, right? So ensuring that you as a facilitator know what that goal is, so that as we are providing guidance, we are ensuring that we are on that track. The other thing is that, like so many aspects of being intentional, of being a mentor and working with young people, is that piece of reflection. And facilitation should also be a reflective practice. So here are some questions for you to review. Maybe for those who just facilitated, you can do some reviewing there, but keep these on hand for the space and time where you had to think back to what went well and how did I do it. But that is the end of our session today. Thank you so much for being here. You will get slides, recording, and transcript within a week, and hopefully quarterly badge within a week, transcript within 2 weeks. We're going to ask that you fill out our survey. It does a few different things. Besides that, it gives us feedback, of course, so we can improve. It also helps give us testimonials so we can share with our funders to show them that these are sessions that you want, that you are getting something from, and that you value. In the training evaluation as well, you can also suggest future training topics. So that is important to me as I build out our monthly schedule, and I'm hoping to build out the next few months and not just next month. And of course, the survey is anonymous, so please don't hold back. So take some time to fill that out. I'll also be emailing this, but the fresher, the better. I've dropped that in the chat for you. It's 12:30 on the dot. Thank you so much for being here and for your participation. This was a great group, great thoughts. I trust you all to get out there and facilitate groups of young people. So thank you again for being here, and I look forward to seeing you next time.